Welcome everybody to the Magic Beans podcast. We are back again for episode number 43, continuing our Evergreen series. Tonight, myself, Cracker and Chewy get together to discuss a topic that we hope you will like. But before we get into that, we want to be sure that you go and check out our sponsors, Josh and Pat's MTG Bazaar. Go and search them out on Facebook and you will find an awesome site where they run daily auctions and you can pick yourself up some absolute bargains. So go and check them out, search them up, and let them know that we sent you. Now, on with the episode. Enjoy! So we thought we'd have a bit of a chat about a topic that has probably affected most Magic players, I reckon, over their time of playing, and it's almost definitely affected the guys that we've got on here tonight.
Multiple times this week.
Yeah. That is dealing with tilt. So, Chewy, what is tilt? This is a phrase that, you know, if you've ever spoken to Magic players or you've listened to any podcast, you've probably heard of tilt.
Yeah, I think the origin of the word harkens back to something to do with the pinball machine. I won't go into it, but I think it's to do with that.
Yeah, it does too.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true.
But you tilt when you something happens. There's an event within a game of Magic where you know, it might be, you know, your opponent had a luck sack top deck, or you draw 7 lands in a row, or you make a mistake, and that snapshot in time affects you moving forward. So the example is, you know, I needed them to not draw the fourth Shark Typhoon in the third consecutive match, and of course the one draw step that they had, they drew it, and I lost because of that, and my opponent luck sacked, and you know, my mindset and my attention to the game and my general attitude was affected by that event or series of events. And, you know, we see that happen in, you know, whether you're just, you know, playing some matches on ladder and arena, or you're playing in a larger event, having something adverse happen to you within a Magic context, and you carrying that forward into other games and other matches, and that negatively impacting your experience and your play throughout the rest of that day, right? I think that sums it up.
Yeah, I think that's like that sort of last statement you sort of gave there is the real crux of tilt. It doesn't mean that you're leaning over or you're sitting funny in your chair or something like that. It's that something has happened, whether it's your fault, your opponent's fault, or just, you know, something you've perceived, and it has a lasting effect on the way you play your games. And that's tilt in a nutshell. It's something's happened, right or wrong, but it affects you in some way. And for me personally, I find I don't think I tilt very often. I think I can generally, you know, just put it down to I'm playing Magic, so I'm having fun. But I have definitely had scenarios where I know I have, you know, I've made a silly misplay and that's affected me. Chewy, I know I've definitely seen you tilt over the years when we've been playing. Cracker, not so much. We haven't played enough tournaments together to really sort of have that experience. I don't know how you find a Cracker from your point of view.
I'm pretty good with my emotional regulation.
There. I'm
pretty good. I have no need to tilt because I never lose. No, I'm pretty careful with that kind of stuff, but it certainly has happened. Right, I can even think of a fairly recent example: playing in the Arena Open event, and I don't even remember the specifics of the game, but I remember that I was in a really good position to win, and I just needed like one card or my opponent to fade like a single draw step, right? For multiple turns. Not even like I needed them to fade one draw step. It was like I was fine. I was playing cycling, so I had probably like 13 looks for like a Zenith Flare or something like that, and just couldn't find it. And I had played the game really well up to that point, and I tilted, and I was just really, really, I was angry. Like I work really hard not to get angry because, you know, it's not good. And I remember like losing and being mad and conceding, and then like immediately smashing play to play the next game. And I stopped myself because I was like, this is just terrible. Like, what am I doing here? Like, that's not going to be good. And I remember like quitting, like I cancelled before my next match paired up, and I was like, all right, I'm not having fun. This is not what I play this game for. Like, I don't want to be in this state where I'm angry. And I remember, like, I was even with my daughter, which made it worse. And so I was like, all right, well, look, you play, right? Like, you play, and I don't care about this. I'll do it later. And so, like, that's one of the times that I can think of recently where I've tilted, and that's kind of why. But in person, almost never.
Okay, there's a couple of things you've said there that have highlighted some differences between the two of you and myself. I think it's not too much of a generalization to say that I am a more heart on my sleeve personality than both of you.
Yes.
I think we all agree on that as a statement.
Sure.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You guys are a little more reserved with your, your feelings and your personal, things that are close to you, where I'm, I could be accused of oversharing at times, and I operate on emotion more than you guys. Your logical side of your brain is a more of is stronger than your emotional side.
What are these emotion things you speak of?
Exactly. So, episode 6 of the podcast where Shorty had robot voice, that was actually just the filter was off. It was just that's actually Shorty. Yeah. But yeah, I am a more, I am a more emotional person, and I think that for me personally, and I'm not making a generalization about the Magic community here, but for me, being a more emotional person, I think that predisposes me to tilting more often, and it is one of the challenges that I have. So, to throw in my own example, the last paper PTQ, the one that Isaac won, we interviewed him a few episodes ago. I was not feeling well. I was had a bit of a man cold, if you like, and I wasn't at the top of my game, and I was having some, some situations in the game where I'm like, I really should have won that, and I didn't because I'm not well, and I started to tilt because of that, and I dropped from the event because I was like, I'm not having fun, right? It's similar to your example, Cracker, where you just stop playing. I did that, but the paper in-person version, and it's something that you have to be aware of, and it's something that I've learned over time in the game. Well, actually, what I've learned is to go, okay, I need to walk away from it now. I'm still learning on how to actually recognize it early enough to stop the tilt happening.
Yeah, and that's one of the keys. So I guess probably the first thing to look at, we've sort of given a bit of an idea of what tilt is. You're letting your emotions, I guess, get the better of you is sort of one way to look at it. I guess the first part is, what are the things that cause you to tilt, or whether it's you specifically or people you've seen. So for me, the thing that causes me to tilt the most is generally my misplays. It's when I'm in a good position in a game and I just completely forget to do something, as Chewy, as you've seen me do plenty of times.
We've all done that.
Now we get to do it on stream, and people can put the punt counter going. But you pass your turn and you go, I think actually at that same PTQ that we played, Chewy, I shocked a land in, took the 2 damage, intending on doing something, and did something else, and then just passed the turn. And then as soon as I'd passed the turn, went, I had this whole plan and I've just completely messed it up. And that's the sort of thing that I find puts me off my game. And then for the rest of that game, that's what I'm thinking about. I feel like I don't tilt from the variant side of the game, which is one of the most common causes of tilt, which is like Chewy said in sort of your first example of, your opponent needs to draw this specific card and they do, or you get mana flooded or mana screwed, that sort of stuff. I think I'm okay with that sort of thing. But, as you said, Chewy, you've seen that affect you as well. What other ways do we see tilt sort of come into play, or the causes of it?
There can be player interaction, I think can be a cause of it. If a player is ungracious in victory or defeat, that can impact players in that sense. So that can really have that negative effect and sort of, in essence, ruin somebody's day.
What if your opponent, when you give them your deck to cut, they cast a spell on it to curse it?
They hex it. Yeah. I guess that is something.
Yeah, as we've seen here in Melbourne.
There is. Probably the most tilting thing, and any player that does this should be like life banned from all Wizards tournaments is playing their lands above their creatures. That's pretty tilting. Or people that, tap their lands in different directions. I'll tap this land clockwise and this land anti-clockwise.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, that's infuriating.
I also play whiteboard at Shivan Reef, so I know that's tilting for you.
Yeah. Well, more tilting for Chris, but yeah, it's tilting enough for me as well. It's every time I draw my Shivan Reef, I go, look at that with its nice black border. It's great. looks so much better. But it's and I guess what my point is, I suppose, is every single person will have different things that tilt them. Like, so I might be more predisposed to tilting, but that doesn't mean that others, never tilt, right? Even the best players in the world can have tilt, but I guess it's a real skill in Magic, and that's what we're trying to here to talk about. And this is being part of the Evergreen series is something that people should be able to look back on and hopefully reflect on in their own game or their own experiences. Is sort of understanding what makes you tilt and trying to implement things that address that. So some people are tilted by their opponent's lack of hygiene, or their opponent's just general attitude towards them for a myriad of reasons that we won't go into. It might be that you've got the fourth bad matchup in a row. I've got mono red Cavalcade again. My deck crushes every other deck in the room except for this. Why do I get paired against this? That sort of thing is tilting. So that every person has different things. There's a spectrum, I guess, a range which affects us and tilts us. We see it and I guess the examples we've been giving here in a competitive sense, but players can get tilted in casual commander games where players go, oh, it looks like you're
Paducah bog you repeatedly. Yeah.
No. And just consistently attack you. It's like, oh, you won the last game, so I'm gonna, even though you're playing a different deck now, I'm just gonna send all my things at you. Or newer players, I guess, less experienced players can be tilted by, a series of counter spells, and things like that. So it doesn't matter what format you're playing and what level you're playing at. Tilt is really a thing that is part of our game, because the human element of our game is such a big part of it. So tilt is one of the components there, and I think if you can learn to deal with tilt, learn to recognize it, learn to move past it, and accept certain things and put them behind you, put the past in the past, which sounds really easy to say. I think, you will not only, enjoy the game more, but you'll potentially win more games of Magic. So if you're playing the game for enjoyment, you'll enjoy it more. But if you're playing the game for the competitive aspect of it as well, I think you'll win more if you have some mechanisms to deal.
Yeah. So I guess the next part of that is, how do you identify that you are either already tilted or are getting tilted or about to become tilted? So Cracker, you said before you had that game on Arena, and straight away it was like, that sucks. I'm going to hit play straight away, start playing another game.
Yep.
But you had that recognition of, hang on, I'm not in the right mindset to be playing this game. I need to stop now. That takes a fair bit of self-awareness to realize that's the state that you're in. How are our listeners going to learn to be able to recognize those signs?
That's tough, because it does manifest differently for everybody. And I think there's myself, like you, Shorty, I tend to get most annoyed with the game or most likely to be on tilt is when I feel like I've made a series of really stupid mistakes and I just get like, you're an idiot. Like, why would you do that? That's such a stupid thing to do. And it's kind of
I know I'm better than that, right? That's
it's
what
the
it
internal
is. Yeah.
monologue that you have, right? That I think you need to listen to. For me, that's how I know what's going on is I kind of listen to what's going through my head, and it's like, right, well, I mean, if I get angry, then that's pretty obvious that you're angry. Right? If you're paying any attention, then at that point it's probably a good time to stop. But it's kind of knowing that I think that the thing that the Magic induces this the most, and obviously the term tilt comes a lot from poker as well, is that there is variance in the game, right? And there are elements out of your control, which is fantastic and frustrating at the same time. And so it's one of those things where you have to be able to identify like different components of the game where you can look at them reflectively and positively, like you were saying in your example, Shorty, where, you shocked in a land to make a play and then you didn't. And you can fixate on that as a problem in your mind and just go, oh, I can't believe I did that. I should have done this. And like now this is just all thrown everything out. Or you can kind of identify and go, oh, I should have done that. It was a really big mistake. And then go, okay, how do I recover from here? And it's difficult. Like getting over tilt is one of the things that is really challenging and really worth trying to do. And it's different in the scenario that you're in, right? Like if you're, like you said, at a tournament, you're in a pizza queue or something like that, you can't just stop. I mean, you can do what Chewy did and just drop, right? But if you want to continue, then you need to be able to compartmentalize it and kind of have some techniques within yourself to kind of regain your composure. And I think that's really different for everyone. For me, it's like a matter of taking some, a couple of deep breaths and going, okay, that was dumb. Let's move on. And what can I do from here? And trying to then like looking at the plan moving forwards and knowing that, if I want to come back to it and beat myself up over it later, then that's fine. I can do that later. But, that doesn't help me moving forwards, and chaining mistakes together because I'm just annoyed at myself for doing a stupid thing just makes it worse.
The chaining mistakes is an interesting one there, but I think I'm being a little bit self-reflective here, and I think I'm a good case study actually for this topic because I am both predisposed to tilt as we just talked through, but I'm also a bit stubborn, right? So in your example, Cracker, where you hit the play button and just got into the next match, I think 7 or 8 times out of 10, I wouldn't have hit cancel and I would have just gone on with it. And I then become pretty results orientated. So I guess my takeaway from this cast is to walk away at that point, is to take a break at that point and to, give yourself that space to process it, get over it, and then start again. And that's not always possible, at, large in-person, timed round events. So it's that's a challenge, absolutely, and a real skill. But there is few things more tilting than making the same mistake more than once. But on the flip side of that, what I think it would be a really useful thing for people to do is, so to use Shorty's example of shocking in a blood crypt, right? Or whatever land it was. When you're in that situation in a match, the next round, the next week, the next month, the next year, playing that turn differently, not taking that 2 damage and going, I learned my lesson, right? So, recognizing those moments there's a lot that goes on in a game of Magic, and in that specific example, Shorty, the deck you were playing had a lot of triggers. But it's a thing that's, I think it's important to look at retrospectively, and part of our learning, because it's okay to make mistakes in Magic, and it's okay to take some time to dwell on those mistakes, where this cast isn't about, suck it up, princess, move on. This is about, a learning. So I am sure, Shorty, whenever you have the option now to shock in a land, you give it just a nanosecond more thought than you did before that point, right?
Yeah, it's probably pretty likely.
Pretty likely or not likely?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess when you make a mistake, there'll be, you know, that initial reaction of you idiot, as Cracker said, and, you know, like I should be better than this. That's okay. And it's okay to make those mistakes. It's okay to feel that way. I guess the important thing is to learn from it, you know, in the long run. And this doesn't help us in our, you know, the rest of that game. I'm kind of jumping ahead a little, but, you know, that's what makes us good at Magic. You know, people that play games of Magic have played a lot of games of Magic, you know, people that are good at the game. So that's because they've learnt a lot. They've learnt those little things in those situations, and they've got that experience to draw on. But yeah, recognizing it within yourself, what makes you tilt, recognizing it before it happens, recognizing it as it's happened, some mechanisms to deal with that, and then to learn from it. So there's a lot here, right? There's a lot to unpack. So
there's a lot of components to it.
It's not a quick thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think, you know, you're going to have those obvious moments when you know, yeah, like you said, you make that mistake, and you can, in Magic, you're constantly planning ahead, or if you're wanting to be a good player, you should be constantly planning ahead for what you're doing. And, you know, you lay out these plans, and then you do something silly like I did, and you completely go against your plan. That's the moment that you need to recognize that, okay, I've done something wrong, obvious. Now is the point where I have two paths that I can take. I can dwell on that problem or that mistake that I made, and that is me tilting. I'm going to go down the tilt path. Or I can move beyond that, come up with a new plan, and think about that mistake that I made later. And I think that's where you're going to see those pretty easy opportunities to identify where you may be either about to tilt or starting to tilt. Where it's probably not as easy to identify is those sort of long, drawn-out, built-up ones where you get, like Chewy said, you know, you get 3 bad matchups in a row, or, you know, you lose every dice roll, and you know you're in round 5 of an event and you haven't won the dice roll once, and you've lost all your games, and you're blaming it on the dice roll. That is tilting, but that is built up over time, or getting constantly mana flooded or mana screwed and those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
That leads you down the path of tilting, and it's a compounding issue. It builds up, and then, you know, you're playing round 5 and you lost the dice roll again, and you got your bad matchup again. You're going to go into round 6 with that mindset already of, I'm going to lose the dice roll. I'm probably going to play against mono red again. This sucks. You sit down against your opponent, you roll the dice, I lost again, okay, you're already off on a bad foot, and they play a mountain, straight away you're going, this sucks, no, I'm done, this, you know, I'm not going to win. The reality is you have every opportunity to win that game, and what's happened in the previous 5 rounds leading up to that point have zero impact on that game. They probably do have an impact, but they have an impact in a way that you've just played that matchup 3 times, so now you should have some good ideas of how to beat it. So you're actually probably in a better spot.
I think something that does work for me, and this sounds really easy when we say this, but it is difficult when you're in that moment. But what a mechanism that I try to do, a strategy I try to employ when I feel myself tilting, if I manage to catch myself, is I go back to the absolute base fundamentals of the game. So I go, I'm struggling, I'm tilting the experiences or the randomness or the whatever it is that's tilting me is affecting me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to untap, and I'm going to untap my lands, and I'm going to sequence them, and I'm going to go, this is how many of this color mana I've got, this is how many of that color mana I've got. I'm going to pay attention to those really minor things, and then I'm going to go, okay, upkeep. Okay, this is my upkeep triggers. Okay, draw. And I go back to that turn-based, that fundamentals of the game. And you know, if you're thinking about it in a you know, an analogy I can think of is, you know, if you're playing cricket, or if you're playing baseball for our US friends, or you're a kicker in you're kicking a ball in whatever ball sport, right? You're going to have times where, you know, you're hitting or kicking the ball really well, and times where you're not. And when you're not, the best way to get back in form, if you like, is to go back to your routine and go back to your fundamentals. So if the bowler's running in or the pitcher's on the mound, or you've got you're about to get the snap and punt the ball downfield or whatever it might be, that is the most important thing to you right now. If you just focus on that and that becomes with everything that you've got, and it sounds easier than it is, but that gets you through that. And then you go on to the next phase and then the next turn and then the next game. And there's enough going on in a game of Magic that you should be able to put the outside influences that are causing tilt away, because if you focus on the complexity of the game and the interactions within it, that works for me, a lot of the time at least. So that's a suggestion I can make. Cracker, when you see yourself tilt, you said, maybe I'll just have a break from the game for an hour or so. Is there any other thing that you would employ in that sense? Changing decks or anything that when you feel yourself about to tilt, if you manage to catch yourself early, what mechanisms would you employ?
Yeah, so like I said, it depends very much on the scenario that I'm in. So, but if I'm playing like Arena at home and I'm trying to get to the next rank, right, of ladder, and you kind of just get fixated on that goal, and anything that falls short of that is, for me, is frustrating because I have something that I care about, right? Like I'm trying to rank up. And, you get really close and then you take a couple of losses and it's annoying. And that's where Shorty was talking about, like, perhaps it's not any one singular event, but it can be like a compounding thing. So it's either a matter, for me, I can kind of just close my eyes, take a couple of deep breaths and reset. Like, that works for me. Like I can just kind of relax, bring my heart rate down a little bit, realize that, this isn't going to help being feeling this way or with this mindset and focusing on this. And if that doesn't work, then yeah, absolutely. Like recently, I was just grinding some ladder and I was playing some historic, right? And I went, I'm going to play some mono blue because it's fun and I enjoy it. Got just ranched, like, absolutely not even close for a bunch of games in a row. I was like, all right, forget this. I'm just going to throw, lightning bolt to people's faces. And so I queued up with mono red and got ranched again. Just like, I was like, oh man, if I'd had this with like the mono blue, I would have crushed them. And then if I'd been playing mono red with it, like you get the bad matchup lottery, right? And then I'd been playing for like an hour and I was just annoyed. I was really angry. And I was like, well, this isn't why I want to play Magic. I don't do this to feel this way. And I ended up queuing into like one of the arena casual event things where it was just some crazy thing they'd put up where you could pre-construct a decks and it had like 17 copies of a particular spell because there was no limit on it. I had fun. I had a great time. And I was like, all right, this is why I want to play Magic. So yeah, absolutely. Like changing it up, or if that doesn't work, just put it down. It's a game, right? Like I play Magic because I love it and it's fun. And if I get to the state where I'm not having fun, then why am I doing it? Why do I want to put myself in a position where I'm not enjoying it?
You've reminded me of, and it's an example I have given before, of when I was, initially like heavily invested in Magic. I was playing multiple tournaments a week. I was traveling to every GP or PTQ I could get to, and I was focused on the real competitive side of the game, right? And then I started to play Magic at the expense of other aspects of my life. And because I knew I was making those sacrifices for the game, when I didn't do well in tournaments, I found myself tilting quite quickly. And, and it was how heavily invested I was in the game was directly proportionate to how easily and how far I tilted. Getting back to Magic is a game that's really fun that you play with people that you enjoy spending time with. And that's why I love a cube. I like drafting. I've discovered Commander more recently. I love the competitive aspect. The competitive aspect draws me into the game. I love winning, but I also just love playing the game. And I guess, if I'm in that tournament perspective where I'm tilting mid-tournament, let's get back to the game fundamentals. But for the slower burn thing where it's like, I just can't get out of platinum or whatever it is, change it up. Play one of the, more casual events, tee up a game of Commander, over Skype or however we do it nowadays, and, continue to play the game, continue to play to the best of your ability, but get back to the fact that it's a fun game. Don't lose sight of that. That is probably the, after we've talked through this for half an hour, that would be the biggest piece of advice I would give to people is, it's a game. And yes, it's a competitive game and we're invested in it and we want to play it well, we want to win, but at its core, it's a really, really fun and challenging and rewarding game. And if we don't lose sight of that, I think we will be less predisposed to tilting.
Yeah, I think a lot of it can come down to what your goal is at the time that you're playing, that specific game. So if you've, for us with families, we plan ahead 2 months in advance to go out on a Saturday to play in a PTQ or something like that, and we drive all the way across the other side of Melbourne. We're going there because we want to win. That's the whole reason. We're not going there just to have some fun and play Magic. So when though you get hit by the variance stick or things go slightly wrong or you make those silly mistakes, you've just ruined your day that you've had planned for 2 months, and that can make it very easy to tilt because that's the mindset that you're going in. You're going in there to win, and you get the same thing on the ladder on Arena. And Cracker, you sort of mentioned at the start that, and before the cast, that you find you tilt much more playing ladder on Arena than you ever do in paper and in playing in person. And it's because you have that constant goal that you're trying to get to. You're trying to get to the next tier. You're trying to get out of gold and into platinum, and then when you're finally in platinum, you're trying to get into diamond, and then you're finally trying to get whatever's after that, mythic. I don't know. I've never been there. But you've got that constant, I need to hit this mark. I need to get to this point, and when you go on those losing streaks that happen, it sucks. I remember it was probably a year ago now, most likely, but trying to grind up in the ladder and doing really well. You go on the win streak, you get the 10, 15 game win streak, but then you get the 10 game losing streak. And overall, your win percentage is really good. You've got a win percentage of 57 to 65% sort of thing when you actually average it out, which is really good, but you're fixated on the, I just lost 5 games in a row, I'm dropping down the ladder and that sort of stuff. So they can be very tilt causing because you're trying to force yourself to hit these goals. And that's where, like Chewy just said, it's a good idea to have a break, find something else to do, find a different queue to play in, go and do something casual, whatever, just to sort of separate yourself from that. But I think sort of, I guess to sort of put a bow on all of this, the way you deal with tilt is by trying to forget about what's happened. Like I said a little bit earlier, you're playing Magic, you've got a plan in your game, you're trying to enact that plan to win your game, and there's going to be things that are going to crop up that are going to go against that plan and stop you from putting that plan into place, and that can be the variance of flooding out and drawing 10 lands in a row, or it could be the play mistake you make or something your opponent does or whatever. Once that's done, it's done. There's nothing you can do about that. You drew a land for the turn again, well, too bad. You've got that land in your hand now. There's nothing you can do about it. Allowing that to affect you going forward is not good for you and is not going to help you win your game. But if you can say, okay, well, that's done. I've got another card I'm going to draw next turn. I just continue on with my game. I amend my plan. I change what I'm doing. And you shut off what's happened in the past and you forget about it. You can go back then later after the game is finished or after the tournament or whatever and kind of debrief yourself on what happened in the tournament, but stopping yourself from allowing those things to play on your mind and continue on your mind is going to help you deal with tilt. And in a tournament setting where you're playing rounds back to back to back to back, you don't have that opportunity often to have a break and go and do something different and separate yourself from the game. So you're going to need to learn to be able to shut off from what's happened. But when you're playing at home, when you're playing with friends, whatever, you've got that opportunity to have a break, completely forget about it, and then come back with a fresh start. So that's the way I sort of find that I have to deal with tilt, especially in a tournament setting. If I make that play mistake, I need to just go, okay, I've done it, it's done now, I'm an idiot, but move on, and that's what works for me. So
it's because it comes from a place of passion, right? We all want to do well, and we all love the game, and all of the stuff we're talking about is all self-induced, right? It is all self-imposed pressure that exacerbates and highlights these problems. If you think about when we're talking about when these things occur, it's when you've got a specific goal that you're trying to achieve. And I've heard a bunch of like pro players and things, and when they talk about the fact, not that they don't care, but they put no expectations on themselves. If there's no pressure to do well, then you tend to do well because you can just focus on your fundamentals and kind of do that. So like bit of self-care here, like forgive yourself, I guess, to some degree, right? Like the pressure is only in your own mind, and it's a game. So like if it's not fun, don't do it.
Yeah, keep Magic fun is I think the common thread here, right? Keep Magic fun.
Yep. Not most of the games you're playing in Magic, you're not playing for sheep stations or anything major. So
correct.
Yeah, keep that little bit of perspective. It's going to go a long way to your enjoyment in the game and stopping you from tilting. So I think that's going to do us on this topic. We've sort of covered what tilt is, how you can identify it, and a few ways that we've found that help us to deal with it. Hopefully you can take something from that and put it into practice in your games, and try and recognize when you're in those scenarios. And even if you think about it, after the fact, when you get home after a tournament or after you've played an event or something like that, look back on your tournament and reflect and go, okay, was there any point in that tournament where I've messed myself up because I was stuck on something that I didn't need to be stuck on? And then, try and identify that and rectify that for your next tournament, or try and identify it before you get in that mindset so it has any effect on you. So that'll do us. We'll wrap up. So come and join us in our Discord if you're not already in there. You can find the link for that in our show notes on the podcast. Go and check out our sponsors, Josh and Pat's MTG Bazaar on Facebook. They run auctions every weeknight with premium auctions on the weekends. So go and check them out. Just search for Josh and Pat's Bazaar. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, all those places. Just search for Magic Beans Cast. We'd love it if you came and found us there and gave us a follow so you know when all our content is coming out. If you want to find me, I am at Peace Inc. on Twitter. Chewy, you are?
At Chewy MTG.
And Cracker?
At Joel Hill _.
Very good. So that's going to do us. Take care of yourself out there. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.